How's everybody doing? It's Thursday on the podcast. I'm Garrett Sims. This is the podcast, and we're coming at you live Thursday, February 11th. See, I got a little bit confused there because I had to start thinking. I actually have we call it exam here. Hold on, let me get this fixed. I actually have an exam that's due tomorrow. And see, it's weird because it's not like a normal exam that you would think of. It's a essay exam. So if you really truly think about it, it's the first time I've ever done this. So basically what he does is he gives you 3 topics. You pick out which one you want to talk about, and you write 750 to 1,000 words about it. It's quite interesting. I've never did anything like it. I'm a little bit confused. I missed that class because of the snowstorm that happened back basically everywhere in Missouri right now, but specifically the roads and stuff and how bad they were in Odessa. And so I missed that class, so I'm kind of just like picking the topic, writing about it. He was going to talk about it more during class. I probably should have emailed him. That's my bad. See, that's just how bad of a student I am. And like, you know, I read it over and I was like, you know what, I feel pretty good about it. It's like, I like the topic I picked. I did my outline. Got friggin' early on. I wasn't procrastinating because I was like, this is an exam. You have to really grab it by its horns and freaking get it done early so that way you don't have a problem. You know, honestly, I've been looking for situations with lighting and it's so hard. And I kind of like what I'm doing now. It's a little bit different. I still got to figure it out. And obviously, that's one of those things. I think I could get a cheaper one on Amazon. But the deal is, and what I've learned so far, is that the LED lights, they're not really good. I think they make it worse. I think you want more of a soft light, something that, you know, kind of helps out. And I've seen some things, and I'm like, you know, with my setup, I don't know, it's going to change. I seen one that I kind of like, and it looks simplistic. But that's something I got to fix. But, you know, right now I'm just happy to be where I'm at. Was going to have Kate on, gave him a call, unfortunately didn't answer. And, you know, it's just what I said. Like, you know, it's kind of like do what you want to do. Like, we'll get on a schedule next week. That's my bad. I'm going to be down here for a while. And is what it is. You know, I just want to say don't mind the mess in the background. Also check out the product placement we got back there. That's my collection of Ghost and peanut butter. That's what I thrive on. Veggies, peanut butter, and Ghost. Occasionally whatever I ate from the dining hall. But there's the product placement. Ghost, please sponsor me. That'd be fantastic. You know, my bed's a little bit of a mess. I've never really had it. Like, you know, honestly thinking about it now, I've never really shot other than yesterday, I've shot an angle where my bed was like, so like in the shot. So I mean, I've never really had to worry about it. But it's just kind of like one of those things. Like now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, dude, the LED lights look. Dude, I'm just caught up on so many things right now. Valentine's Day is around the corner, and you know it's not my favorite time of the year. I enjoy watching it, but I don't like it, and here's why I don't like it. You know, because somebody like me who's been single my entire life, well, I mean, you know, I've obviously had my relationships, but single around Valentine's Day and stuff like that, and I just don't get into it. I think it's more fun to sit back and watch these, you know, in high school and middle school it was a little bit funnier than I think it is now. Nowadays you're starting to see people like kind of get serious and they get longtime girlfriends they've had for a year, 2 years, 3 years. But I mean, let me tell you something. I don't know whether to classify this as grinding my gears, or just like an average rant. I don't know what to call it, so I'm just gonna go into it. Like, when I was in middle school, it was always hilarious because you knew on Valentine's Day, like, you had the pressure of the parents being like, oh, you have to get them something. They're your girlfriend, and you're trying to sit there and you're trying to explain to your parents. You're like, Mom, Dad, listen, like, it's not that serious. Like, at that time, you would be lucky to date for maybe, I'd say 6 months if you were lucky. If you were truly lucky, it was 6 months. Most of the time, it was probably about a month, 2, 3, and then it was kind of over. Like I said, there are some circumstances where you would get a little bit more than that, and you would get kind of lucky. But you knew in high school it wasn't going to last. Like, high school is a different animal. But in middle school, you would see these people come in with giant teddy bears and the big chocolates and the candies and all that. And you're sitting there like, dude, they're not going to be together after this. You know it. I'm not going to name any names, but from what I understand, and rumors that go around in middle school, and I still kind of believe this because I think it's true, somebody bought somebody like a $200 necklace, and I'm like, why are you spending $200 on somebody you know you're not going to marry? I mean, it's one thing, like, sometimes you get lucky and you marry your high school sweetheart. But in middle school, that's just a little bit, ridiculous. And, I always thought it was fun because it's always like, yeah, who's gonna be the most extravagant? Who's gonna do the most outlandish and like make things look, like, oh, we need to be together forever, or whatever, and you're saying all that. That's why I think Valentine's Day is hilarious. You move into high school and you start to see, you get the fact that there's like a little bit more steady relationships, one that lasts for 1, 2, sometimes 3 if you're lucky. You get into those, so sometimes that makes a little bit more sense. And most of the time, I honestly think when you break up in high school, sometimes I feel like it's a little bit more mutual. There's certain circumstances where it like breaks off harshly, but I mean, like, I've never. The few girls that I've talked to, it kind of went mutual. Like, it wasn't like a bad toxic deal. So, I mean, like, obviously, if you were to buy something extravagant and expensive and give it to your significant other and be like, oh, and then you break up later down the line, you'd be like, hey, can I have that back? And they'd be like, oh, sure, because, like, you understand that, like, that's a lot of money. And why are you going to keep something that, really has no value other than reminding you of that person that gave it to you and you're not even with them anymore? Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I've always found it interesting to, like, look back on Valentine's Day and be like, man, it's super weird how all this stuff works. Like, and I don't know how it goes. I don't know if, I have a sister that's in high school. She's a junior. She's been with her boyfriend, I think, for 2 years now. Or if not, pretty gosh darn close. I'm not trying to jinx anything. And here's some wood. I'll knock on it. But they were like, they sit there and they have conversation about, like, listen, I'm not going to get you anything, whatever. And you're always told, like, from an honest perspective, you're a guy, like, you're raised on the idea of, if they say they want nothing, you better get them something, because if they don't, dang well, right? I don't know if my door just opened. See, I keep hearing stuff. See, this thing is like, turn that down, dude. I can hear the footsteps, man. I didn't realize how great of a mic this was. But I think it's just crazy, and you start thinking about it and things like that. You're like, oh my god, you're like, if she says I don't want anything, you have to get it, because if you don't, you're just gonna be on the old S list or bucket list or whatever you want to call it, and then try to keep it PG. You never know when the parents are gonna stop by and listen to the old podcast, but I just found that so interesting that you spent. I would love to know how much money is spent on Valentine's Day. Like, have an actual breakdown. Like, how much money is spent on chocolate? How much money is spent on jewelry? How much money is spent on flowers? Like, because I've even noticed as, like, my parents, as my dad has gotten older, my mom's gotten older, it's kind of like, you might buy her a couple flowers, some chocolate, maybe a ring. But it's not like it's no $500 ring. It's a nice one. It's one of those, and you just start to kind of realizing, like, it's one of those deals. And I've just never, I don't think I've ever actually had somebody to enjoy it with. I wish that's how it went, and there'll be a day where I will, but, I look at it this way too. The best type of money you can have is the one that stays in your wallet, You don't want to get too carried away with spending money that you don't have to. And fortunately, for the case for me, is I don't have somebody to spend it on, so that's a good thing. That brings me to a story, and I feel like I just want to talk about it because it goes along with this so well. And me being the awkward kid I was in middle school, like, it took me a while to be the guy who I am. And in middle school, I was really awkward. And, I look back on it and I was like, dude, it's just really weird how middle school stuff worked. And I think it was 7th grade, if I'm correct. And I'm not going to name any names, and hopefully she never sees this, because I don't think she hates when I talk about it, but I think she'd rather not remember. But was kind of with this girl, and like we didn't, you know, in middle school it was more for the fact of, oh, you're together, and I think that's all it really was. You know, maybe you could get some holding hands out of it or a quick kiss or anything. I never did because I'm too awkward, and you know, we were really technically dating even though we really weren't. We just sat by each other and Snapchat each other. And I guess it still takes me times to figure out how to actually Snapchat people because everybody's different. Like, the personality I am is like I could tell you a joke and I would find it hilarious, or I'd say something stupidly funny that I would think's funny, and you'd be like, oh, you're just stupid. But Easter was coming up. My mom's like, oh, you have to get her something for Easter. I was like, Mom, it's Easter. I said, why do you get, like, you don't get, out of all the holidays that you're supposed to get your significant other something, Easter's not one of them. Nobody's like, oh, I get jewelry for my girlfriend at Easter time. Nobody ever says that. That's just ridiculous. It's a bunch of horse malarkey. You know what I mean? You know what? Actually, I think there's a meeting going on outside. They could be making fun of me right now. There's a good chance there's a bunch of people outside that door that are making fun of me because I'm podcasting. We're supposed to be doing like this candy gram thing, and I have none to send it to, and nor do I care about sending it to anybody. You know what I mean? I mean, I have people I can send it to as a joke. That'd be actually pretty funny. Send it to them as a joke and be like, listen, don't put my name on that, but I think they go in like the mailbox or something. I don't know. I don't really pay attention. I probably should pay attention. That would help me out a lot more. But anyway, so my mom's like, listen, hear me out. She's like, don't get her something. I'm like, okay, so I forgot. It was something stupid. Like, I thought was stupid, so I gave it to her. She's like, oh, thanks. And I think like a week later, we broke up. She's like, yeah, it ain't working. And that's how the middle school relationships end. Is like, you know what, we're done. And then you're just kind of like, oh, wow, like, it's over. And then you just, like, feel like you're heartbroken even though you're just, that is a measly little, I guess, milestone. I don't know if that's what you would call it. But that's just a small, significant portion of the heartbreak that you're going to face in the years following to come. And thinking about it now, I didn't take it that hard. But I shouldn't have been as upset about it as I was. I mean, I think I was upset about it for like a day or two, stretching it, I would say a week, so that would just prove to show you how much I don't remember. But that was definitely a story. Like, this just goes out to anybody. If your parents are telling you to do it, you probably shouldn't do it, unless they say she doesn't want anything. Listen, I'll put this in the friggin' title. If she says she doesn't want anything, you gotta get her something. That's like the number one rule of thumb, okay? You can go without. You can be like, I don't have to get anything, but if I don't get her something, I'm in trouble. You know, it's always like one of those things. It's an unwritten rule. We talk about unwritten rules in baseball, and there is unwritten rules when it follows the significant other approach. And so don't be oblivious and be like, oh, well, she said I didn't have to get her anything, and then Valentine's Day or her birthday or your anniversary rolls around and you don't have anything. You might as well pitch a tent because you're staying in that bad boy for about the next week. You know? I think maybe I'm too young to speak on that, but that's just what I think. Like, you might as well pack your bags and be like, nah, it ain't happening. And, you know, it's really funny. I guess I could just call this, what are we thinking about the Valentine's Day show? I don't know. I could do it tomorrow. Spend a whole day just talking about, oh, you see, now I'm faced with a decision. This is where I really wish I had somebody across from me, or just like somebody, not in the room, but like somebody that worked with me where we could just sit there and talk and like take turns on takes. You know what? I think honestly I'll save that for tomorrow. I'll do a Valentine's Day thing tomorrow, and that will kind of be it because it's Sunday. My friend Ava, she's down here with me. She's more her friend than she is mine, but she's coming down on Sunday and hang out, I guess, for a day or something like that. So that's gonna be fun, but just kind of save that. The title of this, you know, I don't know what to do because I hate titling it something. You know, I hate titling it something when I never know what I'm going to talk about. Like, there's certain days where I really gotta watch what I say. When I come into a podcast, or I go into a podcast, is better phrase it, that I know what I'm going to say. Like, today I was like, I really don't know what I'm going to say. I'm probably going to turn it on and I'm just going to talk about something. Right there, that's where we're talking about the Valentine's Day came in, okay? That's where that all came in. But most of the time I don't know what it is, so I'll probably switch up the way I do titles. I'm always looking to improve, and like ways upon ways to improve and other things like that. Like, I'm not stuck on anything for sure. Like right now I'm happy with the way, my display looks, but that's open to change too. Like, obviously I'd love to get lighting, and it's all about investing in yourself, but I think honestly $250 to kind of sit there and spend at the beginning is quite a few when you have no income on it. And eventually I think my next upgrade, I said it was going to probably be a new iPad, because I really want to get a new iPad so I can get an Apple Pen. But I'll be honest with you, at the top of my list is probably a better camera. I love this camera, but I'd love to get one that maybe has like a built-in light or something along those lines. I'd love to get a backdrop. A backdrop would be really dope. But those are all things that I think about constantly all the time. Like, I was driving home. I call this home. I was driving to school, and I was thinking, like, what's going to happen? Because I said, we're in February. We're almost halfway through. And I said, after February, March, April, May, I'm going to have about 3.5 months, of this setup. And then I said, what's next? Like, what's going to bring it next? And hopefully I'm at the point where, I feel a little bit more comfortable. I'm going to have a job in the summer, so it's going to be a little bit harder. But, I'll be with my friends, and we can work something out. And obviously, if that requires me doing a show every morning at 9:30 in the morning, or 8:30 or 7:30 in the morning, and getting on a sleep schedule and doing those type of things, that's what I'm going to do. And I was sitting there and I was like, really, what am I going to do? And I was like, I could do like a setup in my room because I have this futon. I was like, I could have somebody come over, but I was like, that really doesn't work for me. Like, I love my room. I love the way it's set up. I said it would actually be the most set up room I would know to continue doing these. But, I was like, maybe. I was going to talk to my buddy Dawson because we hang out in his basement. I was going to ask him, be like, listen, would, get like a carrying set for my stuff, like my tripod, my mic, my computer, and be like, would you have any problem if we did podcasts down in your basement or something like that? And then it would make it easier for whoever wanted to come on could come on. And I was like, what, I'm not even sure about that. So I'm kind of curious. And then there's like, I've been thinking about reaching out a little bit of an offer. If I could get where I, do it for a couple more months, get consistent, because that's obviously the thing that I am disappointed in the most is my consistency, because I obviously would have did a podcast Monday, Tuesday if it hadn't been for being stuck at home in a snowstorm. Like, those are things that I think about all the time. Like, I'm like, I could just, I'm disappointed about. I want to get to that point of consistency where when my podcast is going to start, when it's going to end. Like, on a Thursday night, it's not going to drop till 7. On Monday, Tuesday, it's going to be about anywhere from 2 to 3. Wednesday, it's going to be some type of special episode. I've talked about that so much. And, I've thought about this too. I'm sitting here, I'm like, what? Like, why don't I just, I've thought about, like, saying, listen, would somebody that I know like to kind of do this with me, enter this journey with me, and kind of split it 50-50, responsibilities of, like, obviously I would do this part, but somebody would come on and be, like, a co-host, or if I'm home, they could sit there and I would know that from this time, that's what we would just be podcasting, you know what I mean? And we would pick out a certain time, and it would just be, like, I would do the main focus things, and they would chime in, or we could sit there 50-50. That's the things I talk about all the time, like sitting there at a table, having my mic in the middle, and the camera maybe facing the side. There's just things that I think about so much all the time, and it really makes me think. So, I mean, I was thinking about that the entire car ride. I was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to attack this? Because obviously they're still going to keep occurring. I'm going to find some way to do it, whether that's my basement, in my room, whatever. We're going to get it done. And, that's just really one I want to talk about that. Like, obviously there's always room for improvement. And, I'm not happy. I will never be complacent with where I'm at because I know that there's always room to improve. And, that's where I'm at. I'm a guy that wants to keep improving and doing what it takes to be a better podcaster. And, I say that I podcast, and I was watching the Pat McAfee show today. And then that's what really got me thinking because Pat is such an entertaining dude. Like, I would love to do what he does. I would love to be that type of personality, But I think sometimes you can't do that by yourself because if you're wild and, he's so energetic and so fun to watch. Like, if you're like that all the time, I feel like it could get annoying. Like, I feel like if you have other people to talk to, it makes it easier to let your personality show and you always have somebody to talk to and they're kind of like the polar opposite that you are. You know what I mean? And, it's stuff that you got to think about. And maybe that's what I got to do. Maybe I need to get more excited. I've thought about doing stand-up podcasts where I stand up and I talk into my mic and just be like, hey, what's up, guys, Maybe get a mic stand and do ones that are standing up, sitting down, whatever, And it's really been my entire thought process on, like, what's next, Truly what's next, because I've said this over a million times. I said, I watched Mr. Beast versus, I think it was Logan Paul. I watched their subscriber chart, like how many they had, and it took Mr. Beast 5 months before he had 100, and I think it took him 4 to get to 60. You know what I mean? Like, that's just what it takes, and that's what it entails. And Pat McAfee brought it up today. He said, listen, like, we're starting to see more people do what I do, podcast. We're starting to see more people do what he's doing. We're getting into the journalist / podcast / esports / video games. Like, we're seeing more people do it because it's not as grueling or takes as hard as work as actually doing sports, because anybody would tell you if you do any type of sport, like, you put your body through physical strain. There's days where you don't want to get up in the morning because you're just sore or you're tired. You get home from practice at 7 o'clock, 7:30, maybe sometimes 8, and you're going to bed at 9, not even eating. And, you wake up the next morning, you're like, dang, man, like, I got to do this all over again. And, that's the direction we're starting to see people go. And I'm not saying that this isn't a grind by any stretch, but as somebody that played football in high school and that had a couple coaches that had coached college before and implemented some of the stuff like that, like, it is, I mean, sometimes it's tough. I remember in the summers that, we had two main summer weight groups. One would be 6:30 in the morning to 7:30. The other would be 7:30 to 8:30. And, I mean, it didn't really matter what group you were in because you knew what was going to come after, 6:30. You knew what was going to come before 7:30. You knew it was going to be a tough, challenging workout. And, you got to sit at home and relax a little bit in the cool AC. And this was all during the summer. And then you knew the worst was 3 to 4, I think it was 3 to 4 walkthrough, hour break, but the hour break was at the weight room / locker room. You had that hour break, and then you had to go out into practice, and it was hot, And I'm not trying to say any means that sometimes what people go through, e-sport wise, like what Ninja goes through, isn't tough. But I mean, when we start talking about like going through days like that in the summer, and it was every day, back to back to back, like that just takes a lot of the grind. And it only gets worse as you go up. Like the football players here, man, they're practicing in at least 20 below weather, snow and ice and stuff like that. You think that's fun? And that's just their practices, and I'm not even sure how long they practice, what they do in the weight room. I mean, that's a grind. And, I thought Pat brought up a great point. Like, listen, I'm not doubting that it's hard, but what I'm doing right now is not as hard as what people in sports are doing. And he brought up a point, too, that it scares the future. Like, what are more people going to lean towards? Because you're obviously seeing it's a little bit easier to make money. It's a little bit easier to make money doing YouTube or TikTok or being an Instagram model. It's easy to do because it's not really hard. Like, there's no part about it that's grueling or tiresome or enduring, Maybe you have to spend an hour on an edit, Fortunately enough for me, I don't edit. I do live streams. I edit sometimes. K-Bob's House, a podcast original, I did all the editing on that. But if I had to tell you, if I told you that it took 5 hours to do, I'd be lying to you. I mean, it probably took the 3 minutes it took to record some of that, and then maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes of editing to make that. So I'm not going to sit here and say that was super tiresome work, because it's not. Now, yes, would it be repetitive? Yeah. It'd be repetitive. But it's not grueling. It's not, it's not as hard as what a high school football practice is. I'd even argue it's not as hard as a middle school football practice, because sometimes those were hard, especially when you had to run hills. But he's got a point. Like, the future is more people are going to pick what's easier, and I'm going to be honest. I've said from day one, I've been completely honest. And you can ask anybody around me, I don't think people on TikTok deserve as much credit as they get. I'll be the first one to tell you, Charlie D'Amelio and Addison Rae, Dixie, deserve what... I'm not saying they don't deserve it, but I'm just saying, like, it doesn't take a lot of talent to do what they do. And unfortunately, that's the world that we're living in, is... I've seen guys on TikTok that have worked their butts off to do very, very cool things, to do dope edits. There's the magician guy. I think Zach's his name. And that dude does some cool stuff, and I'd love to know what goes into him doing that, because those videos are extraordinarily very cool. And I won't take any, because he's somebody that puts the time and work into the edits and actually has real talent that deserves the popularity he's got. But to sit there and dance to a song and we're going to say they're going to become a content creator, anybody can dance. Whether they're good at it or not, that's not into the equation. And I'm not going to sit here and be a hater, and that's not what I'm trying to do. But guys, TikTok isn't that hard to get views on. I posted a video of me saying, go look at my podcast. It got 400 views. 400 people looked at that video. And I said, go look at my podcast. That's all I said. And unfortunately, that's how the algorithm works. Their algorithm, there's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no equation. Because that's not what it is. You post a video, sometimes it'll catch fire, sometimes it doesn't. Maybe the hashtags actually play a role into it. Maybe they don't. At the end of the day, it's kind of like gambling. You're going to some people put in a lot of work and are actually really, really super talented and really, really funny. And they won't get as many views, or they won't get the analytics that somebody that just does a stupid dance does. And that's why I've said from day one, I said I don't really like TikTok, and it took me a while before I started watching it, and that's why I don't have it on my phone now. I just think that, there are more people out there that deserve a lot more credit than the people that are famous on there. And that's no disrespect to anybody, and you can call me jealous, because I don't have that following. But I sit on here for an average of, I would say, 30 minutes Monday through Friday, and I would say I put a lot more work in than any of those people did. It's easy to sit there and dance. I could probably do it, and I probably would be lucky to get 500 views, maybe 100. Be lucky. Sometimes you put the right hashtags, you might get 1,000. And that's just why I don't really like TikTok, because I don't feel like it, I don't want to say congratulates, but it doesn't give credit to the ones that deserve it. And that's no knock on anybody. But we're going to see for the next, I would say, it's been 2. It's been 1 for sure. It's going on 2. I would say we're going to have about 4 or 5 years of Addison Rae and Charli D'Amelio being relevant. And, the funny thing about TikTok and the funny thing about Instagram and the funny thing about Snapchat is there's always something in development to be its predecessor. And there's something in the works, I could tell you right now, that is going to be more relevant than TikTok in about a year or 2 years. It's just how it works. That's how social media works. There will be something better along the lines. And eventually, you won't know who Addison Rae is. You'd be like, oh, what's she up to nowadays? Maybe she stays relevant. I'm going to say chances are that she's not. Maybe you know who Charli D'Amelio is. Maybe. You're like, oh, yeah, I remember when she was like a thing. When Dixie D'Amelio was making music that's anybody could do. Put auto-tune on. Say be happy about 5 million times. That's music. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to try to be disrespectful, and I know eventually along the lines, if I ever do get to the point where people are watching these videos, they're going back and they're actually listening to them. They're going to be, some stuff is going to surface in the past and like, oh, you were just a hater, man. I'm not a hater. I just believe there's people that deserve a little bit more. I could tell you right now, I've seen some people that put hard work and effort into what they do and don't get the recognition they deserve because the app's algorithm is basically randomized. Sometimes you get lucky and you catch fire one time, and then you get a couple thousand subscribers, and it's just how things work. And all this is based off what I saw today on the Pat McAfee show, and I don't want to take credit, say like I came up with all these talking points myself, because I listened to a lot of what he had to say, and I agreed with some of it, and I disagreed with some of it, but I thought a lot of the topics he had to talk about were very interesting. I thought that they were good topics that, I could talk about and bring my own perspective on, because I feel like each take is going to be different. Each person's going to change things a little bit differently to make it listenable, to compare and contrast the differences that somebody has to say. And, I was just so intrigued by what he said, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, that's interesting. He brings up a very good point. I'll go there and I'll take what he said and I'll add on to it. So, you can ask anybody. I've said that about TikTok for a very long time. That's why I didn't watch it when it first came out. I thought it was kind of like a knockoff Vine. I kind of thought it was more like Musical.ly. But, guys, to sit there and voice over, I guess, a video of you dancing to some song, listen, that's just not talent. And if you ever ask me, listen, sitting down talking to a mic isn't talent either. But longevity-wise, there are people that are driving in their cars every day needing something to listen to, because maybe for some instance you get burnt out of listening to the same thing. Maybe you're like, I want to try something new today. You're driving in your car, you got a long drive. Maybe you got an hour or 2 hour drive to wherever you're going. You're like, man, I'm going to listen to a podcast. That's a lot of time I listen to them. If I'm playing video games, I'll listen to a podcast in the background because I like listening. I like sharpening my intelligence by listening to what other people have to say and taking it in and deciding for myself what I like about it and what I don't. And I'm not going to drive in a car and watch somebody dance, listen to somebody dance. It's just not how that stuff works. And There's people that like to work out to podcasts. I've done it a couple times. I've listened to some podcasts where somebody's talking about something about sports, and I'm just kind of like, there's days where you feel really, really motivated, and you just want to listen to music that is going to get you jammed up to run through a brick wall. And the other days, for me, mainly my leg days, I'm like, take it down, listen to some, nice, calming music. Like, I like listening to country on my leg days because I don't like getting hyped up for leg days. I feel like it just lets me down because I'm like, I'm gonna do leg day, and then I do my leg day, and I'm just like, it was okay. I just don't feel like you feel as much as a burn in your legs as you do your upper body. You do get a burn in your legs, but not as significant as your upper body because I think, for me, I enjoy working on my upper body more than my legs, and a lot of people will probably tell you that. But there are people who like to listen to podcasts. I've done it a couple times where I'm like, very interesting. It's kind of like multitasking. It's sharpening your senses. It's being able to do more things at one time. Listen, then think, and then work out at the same time. And I just think that's why I think podcasting it's been around for a long time. I know it has. See that time somebody walked in. So I'm not crazy. Eventually it was going to happen. But I just think that podcasts have been around long before it was called a podcast. It's been radio shows. It's been sports shows. Like, I love using Colin Cowherd as an example. His show is The Herd. That's basically a podcast. That's what that is. It's a podcast where he sits at a table and he talks about sports and he takes his takes. First Take, podcast. It's all in the same family of things. And that's why I think it's been relevant for so long, because there's always somebody out there that wants to listen to what somebody has to say. Because I think it's a way to strengthen your knowledge, strengthen your vocabulary. You hear something when somebody's talking, you're like, oh, that's a nice word. I'm gonna incorporate that into my vocabulary. And I could tell you, as somebody that listens to certain podcasts, I feel like that happens to me. You get the basis of, you get the basis for what your foundation of beliefs are by listening to other people. Skip Bayless is one of the biggest Tom Brady guys that I know, and it's interesting because I listen to a lot of what he has to say, and sometimes I agree, but sometimes I disagree. And that's where you start building the foundation, of, what your beliefs are, who you are, what your personality is, And, I'm not trying to cut myself short here, but that's just basically what I mean, is that podcasts have been relevant for so long. And I will continue to believe that whether you call it a podcast, whether you call it a show, whether you call it this or that, they fall into the same family of things. Podcasts and a show are really the same things. A talk show host that does a talk show, it's a podcast on TV. You could say a podcast is a TV show on radio. And I think it will continue to be relevant, and I think it's important to listen to what other people have to say and take what you want from it, and So I'll do a Valentine's Day kind of rant deal tomorrow. I don't know if it'll be a rant. And I'm sorry if this wasn't the most clear and, straightforward, and here's an outline. We're going to hit every topic back to back to back with clarity, because that's not what it is. That's not who I am. I'm gonna say something, then I'm going to go split off, and then I'm going to come back to it, and then I'm going to go about something else. And then finally, some way, I'll finish it up. But that's the thing about podcasts, is you don't expect somebody to be here, hey, my name's Bob. We're going to talk about the weather. Then we're going to talk about cars. And then we're going to talk about how high the grass is growing. Because that's not who I am. And then finish it off with an ending. Like, obviously, there's a beginning, there's an end, and then there's the jumbled messes of strangled ideas all balled up into one middle. That's just how I roll. That's who I am. So, be safe out there. A lot of areas, there's some bad weather out there. Please be safe on the streets. Make great choices. I seen something on my Snapchat today that was heart-wrenching. And There was something last Thursday that involved a Chiefs coach. Don't drink and drive, especially when the weather's like this. Don't be stupid. You're putting not only yourself in danger, but you're putting, I would say, millions of others in danger. So make the right choices. Be smart about it. And if you have to go somewhere, be safe about doing it. If it's something that can wait, please wait. I'll see you guys tomorrow. New episode of WandaVision drops tomorrow. I'll probably talk about that because it's probably going to be, I think it's like an actual holiday episode. I think it's the Halloween one, so I'm super excited for it. As for that, be safe out there. My name's Garrett Sims, and this has been